4f4 against the Czech Pirc. It's probably one of the most dangerous lines to face. It's really important that we know what to do here. So this is my favourite move against 4f4. You can see I played it in a number of games online here, and it's also, I think it's the most popular move in the database as well, but I think it's a necessary move as well. We need to play this move here, because white, if we just do nothing here, is going to just play e4, e5, and if we allow e5 here, followed by say knight f3, bishop d3, bishop e3, white can get quite a nice easy game and an easy edge. With queen a5, what we're going to do is we're pinning this knight on c3. We're actually threatening to just take this pawn on e4. In bullet and blitz, quite a lot of players can actually forget about this and they'll play a move like knight f3, and then we just take this pawn. So that's great. But overwhelmingly the most popular move I find is going to be either bishop d3 or bishop d2. So blocking with him or defending this pawn. There's also e5, which is another interesting move, but I think we're okay in most of these lines. Let's have a look at bishop d3, which is the main one. Now here we can play e5. We look at the master's database. Let's go by Mamudarov. So this is sort of his pet line against this f4 idea. So most players are going to play knight f3 here, but it's really important in this line to always be thinking that and knowing that if white catches on e5, it's not something for you to worry about. So knight f3 is the best move, but if they take here, we take back. And now here, it's important always to remember, don't take this pawn back with the queen, because if we do that, maybe they could get a tempo with knight f3 and maybe black's okay, but it's not ideal. We've got this lovely little move, knight g4. And even if we didn't have knight g4, even knight d7 isn't too bad. So after knight g4, we can see black already scores really well in the master's database, and our next move is actually just going to be bishop c5. So knight f3, and we could take this pawn if we want. We can play knight d7, or we can play this nice little move bishop c5. And I've had this in a few games myself, and yeah, I think practically speaking, this is a really difficult position for white, because he's got to defend f2 when we're threatening knight f2, and also just in general, what's white's plan here really? We've got these two squares covered, we can take back this pawn whenever we like really. We can just play knight d7, knight takes if we really want. And worst case scenario, we get our knight in here, get their dark square bishop off. So nothing to worry about here. So let's say they play, I don't know, queen e2 here or something. Maybe play bishop f2, or we can just play knight d7. Maybe knight d7's more easier to play. So I'll just play this, and I think we're just going to take this pawn back next move. So let's say h3 takes, and yeah, I think we're pretty good here. So going back, knight f3 is the main move. Also, it's worth noting if they take with one of the pawns, let's say this pawn, and then go, I don't know, f5 here. Hoping to go for like a g4, g5 later on maybe. We can just go bishop c5. And this is quite nice for black, I think, because this plan of g4 to g5 is very weakening. We've got these lovely control over here, and we can probably play knight a6. So if they go g4, g5, we go knight f d7, and I think we're doing pretty well here. So look at the Masters database. Got a game by Hez, where he beat Gunnarsson. So we have a quick look at that. Queen e2, queen b6, putting some pressure on, and yeah, in the end, black won fairly comfortably. So, always worth noting that they're not going to take this pawn. If they do, and I think quite often they do, especially in blitz, we've got that knight g4 plan at the end. So knight f3, this is the best move. This is what most strong players are going to play against you. And here, I really like this bishop g4 idea. So in this position, essentially we're pinning this knight with a threatening take on d4. So we're sort of asking the question to white what he wants to do here, and I find, certainly in my own games, 99%, well, actually only 60% of people, but in most of my serious games, players play bishop e3 here. Yeah, and if they take on e5, so maybe they think they're winning a pawn or something, just go knight d7. no need to worry, you're just going to take this back again. So let's say bishop f4, and here we've got plenty of options. We can get away with bishop c5 again if we want, but bishop b4 appeals to me a lot. So immediately pressurising this knight. And if they go, let's say queen d2 here, we can then take on f3. So let's say queen d2, takes, and then take here. And actually I think we're slightly better, we're actually doing really well here, really quite a bit better. So it's no worries at all. So back to bishop g4, bishop e3. This is the best move by far. It's the move that I'm most concerned about in this line, sure. And here, I'd want us to play knight d7. The idea is we're just going to develop and we're going to strengthen e5. So, in this position, the most common moves are h3 and castles. Now, if they don't play either of these, let's say they play, I don't know, waiting type move, we just can play bishop e7 and castles. But I think most players are going to play either castles or h3 here. So castles will be the main move. Let's have a quick look at h3. Now here, we've got a nice move bishop h5, and the point is if they go g4, we're going to take f4. So let's have a look at this. Got this little intermezzo, stops them winning our bishop. So in practice, they'll probably just castle and transpose. And if they don't, let's say they go queen d2, we can just take f3. Or if they go queen e2, then we just play bishop e7. And again, if they go g4, we'll take on f4. And it's, let's say, takes, bishop g6, and let's say they castle queenside, I guess. Or, yeah, let's go castle queenside. Castles, we're doing pretty well here. We've got a nice attack coming with b5, b4. So that's completely fine for us. So back to bishop e3, knight d7. And this is the main variation, I think. You can see we've got quite a few games by Mamadarov against Anand, Volokhin, a lot of strong clashes here. Got Leko Adams from the past as well. A lot of strong players, and essentially our main trump is we've got e5 here, and we're going to just support this pawn, play bishop e7, castles. Now in this position, it's important to realise that white has quite a few different moves. So you can go a3, you can go h3, you can go queen e1, queen d2. But essentially the way we handle all of them is pretty similar. So don't be spooked out if your opponent plays something like crazy like rook b1 or something. You can just castle and do the similar plans that we do against the other lines. So they play h3, bishop h5. So again, they play g4, trying to trap our bishop. We can take f4 as an intermezzo. So let's just see this again. The point is if they take, we take this, and if they take back, we go bishop g6. So overwhelmingly in our League Chess database, players do play g4 here. I think in the Masters database they prefer queen e1 or king h1. So let's have a look at g4. So we take back, go bishop g6, and here, okay, white scores best with e5, but I think we're absolutely fine here. It's important to note not to take this bishop because they'll take the knight, or d takes e5. We're going to take on e5. And here, we have a choice. We can either play queen b6 or knight d5, but I'm just going to go knight d5. Knight d5 is fairly solid, we're just going to friend to his bishop. Now if they take here, we can just take back. We've also got ideas of queen check at some point, winning this pawn, or just causing a few issues. So expect to move like this. And, you know, it's fairly level. In this game, this position's been reached before, and yeah, we're completely fine. So going back, it's just worth noting if they go for g4 to take on f4, and then when they go e5, we take it. And if they go knight takes, we'll take back and go knight d5. So if they go knight takes rather than pawn takes, we're going to just take this, go knight d5. Should be fine. So let's have a look at the other moves here. I think king h1 and queen e1 are the best two moves for white. As you can see in the Masters database, queen e1 is very popular. Let's have a look at queen e1, and it sets up a little bit of a trap, so just be a bit careful here. So if we castle here, white actually has this knight d5 idea, which is very annoying. So essentially, let's have a look at this. Knight castles, knight d5. This can be a bit tricky for black, because if we take this queen, he's got knight takes bishop. It can be a bit tricky to defend that. So we have to go back to d8, and yeah, it's not ideal. So in this position, so once they play queen e1, I'm going to suggest we take on f3. And the main point is the queen can no longer capture it back. So if they go d takes, obviously that's not particularly ideal, weakens them pretty badly. We can actually probably even cast the queenside there. So don't worry about g takes. But rook takes f3 has got to be the critical move. And here, knight g4. And I think I actually had a game over the board against International Master Han. And we got into this position and, you know, it looks like a pretty... So I've had this position over the board a few times, including a draw against an IM, a hit in Han. And I think black is equalised here because after, say, bishop d2, well, first of all, let's just say if black is able to capture this, we're doing really well. This bishop on e7's really nice. So if they play a move like h3 and just gobble this up, and I think we're actually better. So yeah, we've got queen b6 type ideas. So bishop d2's got to be the critical test. And here, queen b6, really nice idea. Pinning this, putting a lot of pressure on white, forcing him onto the defensive. We score pretty well, 56%. In the Masters database, we only score 40%, but obviously that's against stronger players. So let's say h3, knight e2. I'll say knight e2 looks the most natural to defend this pawn. So here so after knight e2, white's threatening bishop a5. And we don't want to take here just yet, because it could be a bit dangerous. The rook coming to b1. So we can play a few moves, but I quite like either a5 here, keeping the pressure on. So h3, knight f6, and yeah, we've got a fairly equalish game. Now going back, if they don't play queen e1, they play king h1 instead, then we can castle. And you can see there's some transpositions, because if h3, again we're going to go bishop h5, and again if they go g4 we're going to take on f4. There's quite a few transpositions here. For example, if they move their queen, we're going to take f3 again and do what we did before, except probably without queen b6. So they go queen e1, we take, and here it wouldn't make as much sense going for this, but after knight g4 they've at least got bishop g1. So here they go bishop d2, we can go queen b6 again. If they go back to g1 we can just play normal moves. Rook e8 looks fine. I think we're okay here. We can, if they play a move like h3, we can just go back, and they've got the bishop there, but it's quite a closed position, and we've got a more active queen. So in practice, this pawn's slightly blocking this rook. We've got some ideas of taking here, getting our knight in, and this centre's pretty solid. So we've got a reasonable game. So going back, this can get a bit confusing, all these different lines. In this position, if they play a move like, say, a3 here, we can just go rook e8 and we can drop back our queen later. So it's fairly similar. You'll notice that quite a lot of these moves will transpose to each other, and you'll start to get an innate feeling for the position as black with the similar plans the more you play the positions. So that's bishop d3 covered. Let's have a look at bishop d2, which I find is fairly common. You can see it's the second most popular. So they're just blocking the pin by the queen. However, I play just e5 here. We do have other options. Queen c7's perfectly good. I play e5 here. Now take this. Again, we just go knight g4 at the end. If they try and go for, say, knight b5 or d5, we can just drop our queen back to d8 here. So black's actually scoring pretty well here. Yeah, slightly better for actually probably about equal. So we have a look at this. Takes. Say knight f3. We should be doing pretty well. So most players are going to see that knight d5 is not particularly useful. They're going to play something like, well, knight f3 I think is going to be the main move. If they play the most popular move on the database, that's to take. You remember? Takes. And here, knight g4 as always, and we're actually scoring 55% over 3,000 games, so it's good that good for us that a lot of players are going into these bad lines as white. Yeah. So most strong players are probably going to play knight f3 here though. Thankfully it's only the third most popular option for white. And here, bishop g4. And you'll notice that bishop g4, similar to what we do against the other bishop d3 line, essentially we're playing the same sort of setup. You've probably already figured out bishop e7, knight d7, castles. So hopefully you start to get a feel for our plans here. Here they go for this pawn again. Let's get our knight back to d7. We score well. Similar plan to before. Nice and easy. Now here, if you look at the Masters database, d takes e5 is the most popular. Knight d5, queen d8, takes, and queen g6. So pressurising this pawn, and then go knight d7, bishop c5. This is absolutely fine for us. Honestly, I think bishop d2 isn't much for us to worry about. I know it's very popular, but I think we score fine. Personally speaking, when I play over the board, bishop d3 is the only really testing line. So, other moves here. Let's say you've got queen d3 here, queen f3, all these type of things. If they play either of them, we play e5, and you probably know already the plan. Obviously they take doubly, we go knight g4 again. Nothing really changes. So instead, let's have a look at the third option here, e5. I think e5 is a pretty logical move actually, that we can just play knight e4, try and follow it up with d5, knight a6. So the most common response here according to the chess database is bishop d2, and here we just take it, play d5, and we score around 4. We score pretty well, but the main point is we've got the two bishops, and that should give us pretty good chances here. Just get our bishop outside the chain, play e6, maybe even go for a c5 or something. So it should be fine. Let's have a quick look. Say knight f3, and we're doing pretty well. So here, to knight f3, let's go for bishop g4. See black scoring pretty well here. And the Masters, yeah. So you can expect bishop e2 or bishop d3 here. Let's say bishop e2 to e6, and got the bishop outside the chain. So let's say h3. Let's take this. We can go for c5. I think we're actually pretty much slightly better even. So back to knight e4 here. The other moves, bishop d3. We can just take this knight. Let's have a quick look here. Take this. If they take the pawn, we can just take it. We can probably win 2 pawns. So let's say queen d2 pinning. Here we can just play d5. We're doing pretty well. Let's say they take here. You can play a move like, so they play queen d2 here. Got an idea to play c5 maybe. This is quite an interesting one. Or we can play d5 either way. Let's just play c5, takes, and we can even go for c5 or play e6. We're doing pretty well. So the most critical move here is probably going to be queen f3. And here again, play d5, just spend this knight in. So they go bishop d2, we'll just take it. They play for f5 here. We can just go g6. And it's a bit premature for white here. So they go g4, got h5. And most players here are going to play bishop d3. Now the problem for white here is it's not clear whether he's actually threatening to take this knight, because after knight a6, this is the move I recommend. Takes. As you can see, black scores very highly, and he scores highly in the Masters database as well. The problem for white here is we can go knight b4, and we're going to follow it up very quickly with getting our bishop to f5, putting a lot of pressure on c2. So for example, they go knight e2 here, f5. It's a really nice quick win for black. Queen moves, we're going to take this pawn. They go en passant, bishop f5, and it's game over. So if they go knight f3, we have a choice, but we could g6, and white's in a lot of trouble here. I think black's quite a bit better. So going back, most strong players aren't going to take this knight. They're going to develop probably. They're like knight e2, again, knight b4. So here, again, as you can see here, 4 different players in the Masters database have fallen for f5 here, including John Ems. The exact same trap we saw before, just transposed into it. There's nothing white can do, it's just lost here. So after knight b4, castles played by the majority of players. Again, if they play f5, we go g6. So castles, now here is important that we realise that this knight now can be taken, so we go knight takes. So take this first, has to take back, probably going to take it with the c pawn. Takes. We're just going to stop this attack coming. We've got the bishop pair, so we should be doing pretty well. And I think in practice, this idea of e5, we're doing pretty well as black. We score pretty highly. So in conclusion, there's nothing too much to worry about, except perhaps in the bishop d3 line where we have to be a bit careful. But I think after queen a5 we have had a quick counterplay, and so we should have good chances. Thank you so much for watching. In the next video we'll look at g3, all the bishop moves like d, bishop c4 type things, and basically all the odds and ends like f3, a4, knight e2, all of random moves. Cheers.